So actually, before I actually get into, I will be talking out of the gospel, but we're going to go to Genesis. And on my question this week in my email, what was the 4 covenants? Well, one of them, hopefully you get one of them. And if you read last week's text, you should have 2 of them. So I already have 2. So how many covenants were there in the Old Testament? No, those are the laws. But yeah, covenants. There's 4 covenants. Oops, I just gave you this. So there was 4 covenants. There was the Abraham, Noah, Moses, and David were the 4 covenants. So since nobody answered this, your homework is to actually go and read what the 4 covenants is, write a 6-page essay on it, and get it back to me on Monday. Yeah, when I'm at my interviews, waiting to be interviewed, I'll be correcting you, So the message today, actually, I'm going to go back a little bit. So sometimes with the lectionary, they cut off stuff, and it kind of makes the whole text wondering what's going on. And the text this morning, right before Peter tried to rebuke Jesus, Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do the people think I am?" And Peter and the disciples, some say you're the prophets. Some say that you could be Elijah reincarnated. And then Jesus asked, "So who do you think I am?" You know, Peter, who's the one, he's kind of a leader, he steps up and says, "You are the Messiah. I know who you are." But then we get into today's text. And Peter hears what the Messiah must go through. And instead of saying, "Well, that's great," Peter opened up his mouth. And Mark, what you'll see in Mark usually makes the disciples look really kind of stupid. They're stumbling idiots, basically. So Peter didn't really know what was going on, but he wanted to rebuke Jesus because he didn't want to hear that Jesus had to die and suffer and to rise again. He probably didn't know what that meant. And who blames Peter? Imagine if Jesus came to one of us and asked that, "Oh, I'm going to die and rise again." We'd probably be like, "This guy's insane." So can we blame Peter for rebuking what Jesus had to say? Not really. But what happened? What did Jesus do after he got rebuked by Peter? He rebuked Peter by saying, "You don't understand, Peter, what it's about to happen. You need to just calm down and listen and watch for the things that are about to happen before your eyes. You're thinking of human ways instead of thinking in God's ways." Now let's put ourselves in Peter's shoes in the 21st century. How many of us are like Peter and want to make Jesus our Messiah and how we want Jesus to be and to do what we want Jesus to be and to do, instead of realizing Jesus is God and he has his own mission and he's not, and when we and I and us, we think of in human manners. And I don't know about you. I know there's been times that I open my mouth and just like Peter got rebuked by the Lord, I've been rebuked by the Holy Spirit by saying, "Well, get behind me, Satan. What you're saying is wrong because what you want is not what I want." And it can be quite humbling when that happens. So what did Jesus want? What was Jesus here for? And we're going to get more into that in the next coming weeks. In the beginning of this text, it says that then he began to teach. This is a big change because before this, Jesus was showing his power and his authority from God. In this chapter 8, when Jesus is turning a corner and no longer going to be heading towards Galilee, he's turning the corner and getting ready to head to Jerusalem. And we all know what's going to happen in Jerusalem. So it's time not to show his authority anymore. It's time to start teaching why he actually came. And that's what he's doing with Peter when he's rebuking him. He's trying to teach Peter that he's come for a bigger reason than Peter could ever imagine. Because they were expecting a different kind of Messiah. They were expecting another David. And David was a conquering king. And that's what the Jews and the people of those times wanted, was a Messiah that would come and kick the Romans out of their country, so that they could reestablish the great Israel kingdom that David had established thousands of years before. I don't think, and this hit me probably the last time I preached on this, the Israels, or the Jews, were not expecting the Messiah to be God. Now think about that. They didn't think the Messiah was going to be God. They thought the Messiah was going to be human. You know, when the first time I thought of that, it really hit me hard. Like, wow. They didn't realize this person that had been prophesied all these years before was actually going to be God, not just a human. He was going to be fully human and fully God. That must have been a huge shock to them. Once again, how many of us wouldn't act like Peter would and opened our mouths and probably said something stupid like, wow, you can't be God and human. It was funny because the church fathers, the one thing that the church fathers in the 100 and 200s fought over the most was, could Jesus be fully human and fully God? They argued, well, he had to be fully God. But then when others said, you know, he had to be fully human. It took them 300 years to finally to say, yes, God is fully human and fully God. Fully human and fully God. Kind of mind-boggling. How can that be possible? How can God fit into a body like this? Like ours? It takes faith. Because my mind can't comprehend that. But it's that faith that we have who Jesus was. And I think Peter was kind of here, was lacking in, I don't know if he was really lacking in faith, because we have to give Peter kind of a break. I always give Peter a break, because at least he stood up and was able to speak his mind and say what he thought. When the other disciples were probably like, I'm not going to answer. You answer. Oh, you answer. Oh, Peter will answer. And Peter usually did, and he got up and said what he needed to say. But after he got done with Peter, he got up in front of the crowd and then started to preach. If you want, and he said to the crowd, if you want to become my follower, then deny yourself. So I'm going to ask you today, who here wants to deny themselves? Anyone? Anyone? It's hard to do, isn't it? And take up your cross and follow me. How many times have we heard Jesus say, come follow me? He said it to his disciples. You know what? He's still saying it to us today. And to take up your cross. He wants you to lift up your cross and to carry it with you. And this is heavy, I'm going to tell you. And your cross that you carry every day, even on what might not be this cross, is heavy. It's a big burden to be able to be a disciple of Christ. And he wants you to follow him with your cross, to be his disciples. If you're not willing to lift up this and put it on your shoulder every single day, you need to reevaluate where you are with Christ. I was going to preach with this the whole time, but I think I'll lose my breath, and you wouldn't be able to hear me. So we have to deny ourselves and take up the cross, which is hard to do. But we have to, as the followers of Christ. And it's going to tie, I'm just out of breath. We have to tie it into what I talked about last week. We have to love one another. And part of love is taking up the cross that Christ wants us to take up and to follow him. If you're not willing to love other people, and you're not willing to take up the cross, and you're not willing to follow God. One of my favorite theologians was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was a preacher in Germany during World War II. And he ended up dying for the cross. But one of the things that he wrote about before he died was he talked about the discipleship of Christ. He talked about two kinds of graces that we have in the world today, and we still have in the world today. One was cheap grace, where we just say, oh, I'm already saved. I don't need to do anything because Christ said that I was saved, and so I'm just going to continue to live my life. I'm not going to take up my cross. I don't want that burden on my back. That's cheap grace, where we forget about who Christ is and what Christ has done for us, and we make it just into a simple thing and not deny ourselves. And then there's that costly grace. But Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and if anybody wants to read his biography, it's an interesting one, and I'll let you borrow my book. He, during World War II, when Hitler was killing not only Jews, what we don't hear about, he was killing Christians too. He did not want the organized church, and Bonhoeffer was a Lutheran. He did not want the organized Lutheran church to be around. He wanted a state church where he could rule what was being said. Bonhoeffer said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to continue to fight for Christ, even through this dictator who was crazy. I could say other things about him, but I will hold back. And throughout the whole war, Bonhoeffer did this. He was also, he's interesting, he was a spy too. He was doing stuff for the for the Allies and trying to help the Allies get rid of Hitler. It was about 2 weeks before the end of the war, he was executed in one of the camps. He took up his cross, he denied himself, and he followed Christ to the cross and died for him. There's other people who we can talk about who have done the same. Mother Teresa. The list goes on of those people that have done exactly that, taken up that burden, that cross that is so heavy. And if you want to come up after church and just put that on your shoulder just to see it, and that's probably not even close to heavy as the cross that Jesus took. And that's the real cross. The figurative cross that we carry every day is much heavier. And the burden that we have to endure to hold that cross can be burdensome. It can be painful. It means that we're going to have to suffer. But we must. Because that's what Christ did for us. We'll go back to what I was talking about before, being God, being fully human and fully God. The God of the universe. Now think about that. When we look out at the night, you see the universe, how big it is. The God of the universe came down in the bodies that we live in to come and live the ways that we live, to show us how we should live. He didn't come to live in a castle. He didn't come as a king or a prince. As we know during the Christmas story, he was born in one of the most lonely, desolate places you could be born. He was raised to be a carpenter. He wasn't a king. And then he died for us. I mean, he did a lot in between that, which as we go through the Easter season, or the Lenten season, we learn about. But he died for us. The God of the universe went to that cross to die for each and every one of us in this room. Not only everybody in this room, but when you think about the 6 billion people on this planet, he died for them too. The sacrifice he has made for each and every one of us. And all he is asking us is to take up our cross and follow him. To do what he has done. And my question is to you, when we hear about somebody like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, are we willing to take our faith to the point that we are willing to die for the cross? And until you're in that situation, I don't know. I mean, I would like to say yes, absolutely, 100% that's what I would do. I haven't been put in that situation, and I pray to God I'm never put in that situation. But hopefully, if I am, I will be able to say, I'm going to take my cross, Lord, and I will follow you. Take me. Not easy. It's not easy, but we look in the world that we live in today that is so broken. I'm still not over what happened in Florida last week. But we're not taking up our crosses. We're not following the way Jesus has asked us to follow. And we can. It's easy. It starts with taking up your cross and following him. Oh no, by the way, it's loving your neighbor. It's even loving your enemy, which, yeah, that is holding up the cross. That's going to be hard, loving the people that you absolutely hate. But we've been asked to do that. And we won't see a change in the world until we start doing that. We can do it. Starts with me, starts with Helen, starts with Cheryl, starts with Rod. It can take one person. You're going out in that world and loving the person next to you. Okay, I know Lynn's easy to love, but that's... Well, you're a little difficult. I'm just kidding.
You like difficult.
I like difficult. So, take up your cross and follow me. Not me, the Lord. Today, tomorrow, and for the rest of your lives. We do that, I absolutely guarantee you we will see a change in the world that we live in. And I'm ready for that change. I don't know about you. I'm ready. Amen.